Right, we're back for part three of talking with Bruce Gandy, Jack Lee, Willie McCallum, and Iain Speirs for the greatest pipers of all time, and certainly of the current moment. And we're talking about playing longer and what that takes. Advice to younger pipers. Bruce, maybe start us off there. What would be your advice to young pipers, looking out towards a career? Should they think of it in terms of, playing well into your 40s, 50s, 60s, or something else? What do you think?
I, I don't think you want to put a date on someone's playing time. You want to encourage them to play as long as they feel they can at the level that they aspire to be. Um, it should be mentioned, really, although we're playing at a top level right now, that playing well isn't necessarily the AMSR Glenfiddich. There's top grade one pipe band type people and recitalists and people that just can't quite dial it in that last 2% to be at the top and get that lucky nod, which we've all, it's a lot of luck, a lot of good timing, a lot of prep that gets you out of the AMSR and into the, former winners type of event where we're lucky to be there. But that's not the be all and end all. So pursue what they're going to pursue, get advice and help and listen to it. And don't just go and talk to your favorite supporters about it either. I know I could name a lot of people, which obviously I won't, but who have said, this person, this person, this person, they all love my playing. I don't know what was up. You hear that a lot. And you say, well, what about that person and that person? Find out why they didn't like you. It can't just be that they're lousy judges or they're mean or they don't know what they're talking about. There must be a reason they don't like it, and you can learn from that. That was one of the things that I want to think helped me turn a corner, was not figuring out why I was unhappy that I was maybe not winning prizes that I thought I played well enough, but starting to figure out, how did they win that prize? Like, I thought I was better, but three people decided that person was better for a reason. So let's go back and listen to it and find out, what part of the instrument, technical, musical package. So I would tell young people to think more about the overall package and get advice as often as possible than just trying to play their form marches perfectly accurate to the metronome, and that's it. That's just,
Yeah.
for instance, Inverness, that's just the start. You expect all grace notes to be right and all notes to be in tune. Then, if it's a good day for the judges, then they have to really decide what turned their crank. So
Hmm.
that's what I advise them.
Yeah, Iain, I want to touch on, I think you talked a little bit about, Bruce was sort of hinting at a bit ago, the enjoyment aspect of it. Is it all about, keeping going and as long as you enjoy it and not necessarily having to play at that sort of silver star at the Northern Meeting kind of level?
Listening to Bruce, I mean, I think we take it seriously, but don't take it too seriously. We're not all in this for the riches. We're in there to enjoy our performances, enjoy each other's company. So it's a great scene. I think that's the first thing I would say. And then I think about the things that have helped me. And it's one, get good teaching and get somebody that's very encouraging. And I've had great fortune, I suppose, to have my dad and my grandfather who were great supporters of my piping, have encouraged me to play, first of all, sort of bullied me into it, to be honest. And then I've had people like Scott McCauley, who was sort of instrumental in my early playing. And then I was very fortunate to go to Donald, Murray Henderson, and I've had lots of people like that around that have encouraged me. And I get great encouragement from being at the competitions. Jack has been fantastic. Bruce has often, given me supportive comments. Willie likewise. So it's that encouragement's important.
Yeah, it sounds like learning all the time, not only encouragement, but being open-minded and learning. Is that what I'm hearing? Uh,
Yes.
yeah, Willie, do you take that on board as well? Like always learning and continuing to learn as you go along?
Yeah, I would say that that's the biggest factor, and you have to have that as an asset, that you know that you're always a student of bagpipes, because nobody's lived it, knew it all, and you would never know it all anyway. I was very fortunate to have a lot of good encouragement and great teaching as well, and I think that great teaching is something that everybody should try and aspire to, and try and tap into, and yeah, and just listen and work hard on what your instructor's telling you. I think as far as playing, I think in competitions it can sometimes be a bit of an unhealthy place, if you go into it with the wrong um, approach. Really, I think as you get older, you realise you don't look for the prize, you look for the performance. And so the performance is everything, really. If you can take all the preparation that you put in, and all the teaching and the advice, and put it all together in a package, that should be what's important. And if you do that consistently, then the prize will follow. If you just put that together in a package and be consistent about it. In Scotland, when I started competing, there wasn't really any graded competitions, and I remember going to Highland Games when you got to 18. You stopped being a junior piper, and you went into the open piping, and it was truly open. So you would go to a games, say Inverary Games, and you'd be playing against Pipe Major Angus MacDonald, Iain Morris, and Gavin Stoddart, people like that, and they were all at the top of their game. So you had to sink or swim, really. It was a hard school, and I think that was a realization for me that, okay, I was just a little fish in here. And as Bruce said earlier, and this is what I did, I watched these guys and I listened really hard, and I wanted to know why they were so good. And I realized, and what their package was. I then realized what I needed to do to get to the level that they were at. And so I studied them all very, very closely. I still do that. And I think it's really important. So be a student, watch and listen, and work really, really hard.
Yeah, good advice there, Jack. It seems like you've committed your piping career really to teaching more than anything. As have others here too. Do you take that on board? Are you still a student of piping yourself?
Oh, very much so. I'll always view myself as a student. And the advice I would give to a young piper is, if you're interested in a long career, there are a number of things you could and should do, I think. And one is, on the technical side, you get your technique as solid as possible as early as possible, and then adjust as you go. Burls, Cranlows, all the high G kind of movements, all the hard things in piping. What I've learned and myself is that it becomes much more difficult to adjust these things later in your life. And so my advice to them: get as solid as early as possible. And then on the musical side, you need to be a student and view it from a long-term perspective. Continually learn, broaden your repertoire, listen to other pipers, as Willie just said. I love listening to other pipers. It's so interesting and encouraging. Be aware of different styles, particularly in pibroch and these sort of things. But that's a journey. And if you don't have a long-term sort of attitude towards the musical growth, I think it will limit you. So I've tried to do those things myself, and I definitely encourage students to do that.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, and I think in the previous part we talked about stopping for a period of time, taking time off, or do you increasingly get to the headspace where if you stop, it's going to be more and more difficult to get back on it? Kind of like the athlete analogy that we had earlier. Bruce, are you conscious of that more as you go along?
I want to say, unfortunately, I think I'm too conscious of that, to the point that I worry about it. And part of it is, as well as with the whole COVID thing, is that it's been difficult. I'm sure Jack and Willie and Iain to some point have experienced it with your group of students, where pockets of them become just overly bummed out about the situation. Why bother? Why play? Has nothing to do. When my feeling is that I need to keep playing because it's the satisfaction that I'm not going to let the pandemic take that away. I'm not going to let life take that away for a lousy reason. So I keep playing for fear that if I took 6 or 8 months off, the journey to get back to, we'll call it Inverness level, would be monstrous compared to the consistent journey that it already is, which is hard enough to try and remain in shape. I kind of feel like, in a nutshell, if I stopped playing for 8 months or a year just because I needed a mental break, that would be almost too hard to come back from.
Yeah, we just finished a conversation with Richard Parks, who kind of talked about this, Jack. Richard talked about he's just during the pandemic kept going, kept playing all the time, staying sharp. Others have in the past have said they've just kind of put things under the bed and put the pipes under the bed and ignored it. As a pipe bandsman as well, Jack, you conscious of that too, being able to play at the level required of a top grade 1 band as well as your own solo playing?
Very much so. And I think it's a dangerous thing to think that you can take you could or should take long breaks and expect to come back at the level you want to be playing at. I think that's not logical, and I think we all need breaks. Every one of us needs a break from time to time. But I recall taking some breaks in my 20s, going to university and what have you, and I recall it being no big deal. Just get the pipes out again and start playing, and thinking, oh, I'm playing at a more or less the same level as I was 2 weeks ago before exam season or something. And if I was to take a 2-week break now, I would come back at not anywhere near the same level as I was 2 weeks ago. That is just a result of being an older person, and it's the same in the pipe band. Our band, like many bands, has found a way to keep it going during the pandemic through Zoom and what have you, and different projects here and there. And I like the fact that it keeps people mentally switched on. They're thinking like a bandsman. And from just a playing perspective, we play practice chanters, which is pretty much all we can do, but it keeps their fingers going and their mind on it. So I think it's important for pipe band people and solo pipers to find a way to keep going.
And Willie, your thoughts are on that too.
Yeah, I think especially over the last year, it was quite a difficult thing to keep the motivation, because I think most pipers like to have something to look forward to play at. And I think that kind of made it hard, because there was absolutely no competitions or no recitals, no live playing, and that's what we do. So I found it quite hard, and I must admit I would take a few weeks where it would be really hard practice, and then there would be a few weeks it would go by the wayside a little. When I found out that the Glenfiddich competition was going to be on, I realised that between the previous competition I'd played at, it was going to be 52 weeks or something like that. It was just 51 weeks. And I thought, that's a long time to go without being at the sharp end, because we do like to bed ourselves in gradually with a couple of smaller competitions. So I found it really, really difficult to get up to the level I wanted. So it was I kind of put myself into a kind of piping boot camp, and I worked really, really hard. I've probably worked harder than I've worked for a long time, just to get myself to a level where I thought, I'm going to go up here, I need to be competitive. So I think that was really hard, and it was mostly because I hadn't been playing regularly. But I started feeling in the 2 weeks leading up to the competition that I was almost back to normal. So it was good. But yeah, I wouldn't say that's much harder than it was when I was younger. But it takes a lot of work all the time anyway.
Yeah. And Iain Speirs, we'll let you off the hook because you're the young, young one of the bunch, and maybe you don't You can still take a bit of time off occasionally. But you probably too just keep going every day as much as possible.
Um, I'm a bit embarrassed to say, actually, no, I don't, and have over many years now typically taken off about 3 or 4 months. When London finishes, the pipes have gone away. I haven't touched them again, probably until about March, maybe just a little ahead of that, and get ready for the first competition, which is typically the Euston Barra. And I suppose I find that works for me because I come to it fresh. I always remember Scott McCallum used to say, "Oh, you don't want to peak too soon." And it was so true. One year, I remember played everything, played all the time, played all the games. By the time I got to Oban and Inverness, I just felt burst and performed badly.
Was it a mental thing? You were just sort of burnt out?
A bit of burnout, maybe, or just everything. There was no, what we're trying to say, it felt like it was over practiced. And I just didn't have that sharpness enough, the real sort of spark that it needed to bring to a performance for Oban and Inverness. Now, don't get me wrong, I recognise as the years have gone past and I've taken those breaks, it's harder and harder to get back to the level of fitness or sharpness that's needed to compete. But I recognise that, for me, I need something to play for. I need something to practice for. I've learned how to practice efficiently and cram a little bit, but build up to something so that I don't keep it going all the time and lose that sharpness when it comes to the event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to wrap up here, I think Jack talked about how he couldn't imagine playing past age 40, a while ago. Iain, do you have any kind of inkling of that? How long do you think you want to go, or is it just taking it 1 year at a time?
1 year at a time. I think more about when I'll quit work and start to claim the pension than I do about when I'll stop competing. And as I said before, it'll be one of a couple of things. One, I just won't enjoy it, or I won't be playing well enough, or two, all the rest of them are gone and I'll be getting my backside kicked by all the young team coming up. So, I'll just keep going as long as I'm playing well. That's the goal.
Yeah, and all 4 of you, you've got a bunch of records to your names, that we can reel off, piping records. Any kind of age records that you kind of have in mind? Maybe Jack, start with you.
I definitely have no plan. That's the truth. I have no plan. When I entered this group of top players in my early 20s, I had no vision of playing for 40 years here. And 40 years later, I just have no plan. I still love playing and enjoy it, the camaraderie, all the things we've talked about. So I'm hoping that I'll be one of these people will just play at a level that they want to play at and realize when it's time to hang them up. But I have no plan.
What? Yeah, and Bruce and Willie, I think Angus McPherson, John McDonald of Inverness, set records for competing in the clasp and winning the clasp as far as age goes. Any sort of consciousness of that with you guys? Maybe Bruce.
I'd love to be one of those guys that won a clasp in his 60s. That would be fantastic. No, you know what? I honestly have no inkling of quitting. Much like Iain said earlier on, there have been days when I've had a couple days in a row getting ready for a big event and I can't get it right and I don't feel right. My anxiety level's going up and I start to question it. But usually put the pipes down and say, they got moisture, go for a walk for an hour and get them back with a fresh head later. Usually clears the air. It's sometimes you're just maybe trying to do too much at once and you get yourself into a ball of nothing. But I want to say one of the things that's amazing, apart from being with all of these guys and more for so many years, and the respect. I told this to Alex one time. I'm not sure what the scene's still like, but when I was coming up through the Bs and even the professional contest, there was a lot of sort of grit where you wanted to win a prize to get out of that level. And there wasn't always this, oh, way to go, that was awesome, you're fantastic, or any of that kind of stuff going through those levels. But when we've been fortunate enough to get to where we're at, we're just playing to play now. And we're all trying to win an event when we play, but it's about the journey and stuff. And the camaraderie is great. And the stories that I come back from every single event about Willie said this in the back room, or I was talking with Jack here, or Iain mentioned this right after he played, and get to tell that to my students and bring on an aha moment. Those are priceless as an instructor. Stuff I wouldn't have thought of, but you pick it up or from these fellows here. That makes me go, I need to be at the next event because I might miss something really, really good again. I like that.
Yeah, common thread, through all of these comments since part one is like an ability to learn and appreciation of your fellow competitors. Willie McCallum, last comment to you. How long do you think you'll keep going? Any sort of idea about that, or do you just take it a day at a time like the rest?
I think it's very much probably a season at a time, but if I thought I wasn't enjoying it, I would be the first to go, well, that's it. I think it would be a hard thing to let go as well. And you have to, the danger is that you kid yourself on that you're playing better than you are. I think for me, it'll be about the enjoyment. I don't think I'll kid myself on, and there's plenty of days where it's not very good, but I think you just look for the events that you really want to be involved in, and that's both as a recitalist and as a competitor. And yeah, I think for me it'll be enjoyment and feeling that I can do a decent job.
That's terrific. Well, all four of you, Bruce Gandy, Jack Lee, Iain Speirs, Willie McCallum, may you have many more years of great competition success and piping enjoyment. And thanks for the decades of the great playing that you've contributed. And thanks for taking the time today.
Pleasure.
Thank you.